Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Salebox for the 20th of December 2014. My name is TotalBiscuit, rounding up today's Steam deals. If you missed out on yesterday's, go check out yesterday's video. They should be available for the next 24 hours or so. As usual, we will not be covering the 12-hour deals, although I will tell you this for a little quick tip, since it seems to be there for the next 20 or so hours. Pick up Ruse. That was the first game we ever did on WTF Is. It's actually really good and costs next to nothing, so you should probably find that one. Alright, let's kick it off, shall we, with Prison Architect, 80% off. I'm constantly surprised as to the discounts that Prison Architect actually gets, considering it's still in early access, but that game basically shouldn't really be in early access anymore. It's so very complete. There's so much content there that I have no hesitation in recommending it. It's one of those fairly rare early access games that have done things very well. They took a lot of feedback from the community. They've been running in early access now for over a year and have been putting out fantastic improvements to a genre that is in dire need of some actual good games in it. Thankfully, Prison Architect is. It's probably the best thing that Introversion's made, and it's well worth your attention if you like the idea of a management sim. Certainly not got the sense of humor that games like Theme Hospital and Theme Park do, but it is a very solid and enjoyable management strategy game nonetheless. Stronghold Crusader 2, 33% off. Alright, I probably would not recommend this at this price, I'm afraid. It's not a terrible game. The problem is that it's really not worth buying over Stronghold Crusader HD. It hasn't added enough to the experience, and in fact has detracted in many ways, taking away functionality like moats and engineers. It's not really that much of an improvement from an aesthetic standpoint either. It's still a little bit buggy. It feels very low budget, honestly. It could have done with a few more months in the oven and a little bit more cash to really polish it up. If you do want a castle building game, then Stronghold Crusader HD is very good. It's a little bit old, but it still plays absolutely fine, and you can get that for next to nothing, so I would strongly recommend looking at that instead. Rise of Nations Extended Edition, 75% off. Here's a classic RTS that was polished up a little bit. I would hardly call it an HD remake. It really isn't. They've improved things somewhat. I would say that it's fairly fortunate that the assets kind of stand the test of time anyway, and as a result, the game still looks pretty good today. Frankly, this game is just worth picking up if you're looking for a really solid real-time strategy. Rise of Nations was very good when it came out. The Extended Edition means that it looks a little bit better, it plays a little bit better, it's had some UI improvements, it's had some improvements to the way that multiplayer works, it comes with the Thrones and Patriots expansion. It's not got a huge number of improvements, but it's got enough to justify buying it, because it was already good in the first place. So it is very much worth the money. It's a game about advancing your empire and increasing your level of technology. It's a little bit Age of Empires, a little bit Empire Earth here and there, but it's got its own set of really interesting systems that make it a little bit non-traditional. It's a lot of fun. If you want to run your tanks into a bunch of armored knights, you can do that, and you will hopefully have a great deal of fun doing it. Metro 2033 Redux, 50% off. So, the original Metro 2033 came out to some acclaim, but it did have some issues here and there. Then they decided they were going to remake it. They were going to do the Redux, which they did to both 2033 and to Last Light. Last Light didn't really need it, per se, although they made some kind of nice changes anyway. 2033... yes, I think that it did need it, and it helped a great deal. They've put some pretty good improvements in there to the UI, which I like a lot. They've got Ranger mode in there and a couple of extra game modes, which gives it a good amount of replayability. It looks absolutely incredible. It's very atmospheric, and some people didn't like the changes to the stealth system, but personally I thought they were pretty good. So if you haven't played Metro 2033 and you like the idea of first-person shooter with a little bit of survival horror thrown in for good measure, where resource management really matters, then Metro 2033 Redux should be fairly high on your list of priorities. The Vanishing of Ethan Carter, 40% off. So this is a fairly short game, which means that the original price was perhaps a little bit too high for some. The discount might be a little bit more tempting. You can beat this game in about 3 to 4 hours. It's an incredible lookup. It is a first-person detective game, essentially, where you wander around a reasonably open world looking for clues and attempting to solve supernatural mysteries, which you can do so via the use of items that you pick up, as well as your ability to see the past, as it were. You have to slowly piece the crime scene together and then arrange it chronologically. So It's got a fairly minimal amount of gameplay in it. It's got enough to definitely justify it being a game. It's actually more like a first-person point-and-click mystery game as opposed to anything else. But it's incredibly atmospheric, absolutely gorgeous. It's actually one of the best-looking games to have ever been released, ever, in the history of anything. It's damn good looking. And it actually comes from some of the developers behind games like Painkiller and Bulletstorm, which might surprise you somewhat. Yeah, I would pick up Vanishing of Ethan Carter if you're looking for something really atmospheric and engrossing to play through in one session, and you think that the price tag is right, then Ethan Carter is a definite buy. Binding of Isaac Rebirth, 33% off. Well, this game has a ludicrous amount of content, and if you happen to be the sort of person that likes the roguelite style of doing things, this is a game that will soak up vast chunks of your life. It's not my thing. I don't really like the aesthetic, and I'm not hugely keen on the game mechanics either, but really this is not a genre that I personally enjoy. There are plenty of people that do, however, and The Binding of Isaac Rebirth has ridiculous replay value, and they added a ton of content versus the original. Plus, of course, they made it look less terrible since it's no longer a Flash game and no longer running in 4x3 and doesn't have all of the problems and quirks that a Flash game would otherwise have. It's the definitive version of a very popular roguelite indeed, and it's considered to be top of the genre for a very good reason. I personally don't like it, but frankly, that should not dissuade you at all. 7 Days to Die, yet again. How many times has this bloody thing been discounted? 50% off. It's still in early access. It is still a first-person zombie survival game. It is coming along. That's what I will say. It is coming along. It's got a good amount of crafting and building involved in it. It's got past that awkward stage where it was promising stuff that clearly isn't there. From what I've heard, it still has some hacking problems, and that's something you should watch out for. It's perhaps best to play with a friend and try to stay off some of the more public servers, because there are plenty of people modding or hacking the servers to make people's experiences less pleasant. So if you can get a friend and play PvE, then you'll probably have a reasonably good time with it. Again, though, it's an early access title. Do you really want that zombie survival game right now? Do you not want to wait? It might be a reasonable idea to wait. Europa Universalis IV, 75% off. Do you want to sink a huge amount of time into a grand strategy that is reasonably accessible in comparison to some of the previous ones? Well, Europa Universalis IV is exactly that. It has a metric ton of expansion and DLC content. This is the sort of thing that you can sink thousands and thousands of hours into if you can get over the learning curve. I have never really had the time to do that, which is a shame because I have a feeling that I'd like this a great deal. There are plenty of channels that play this game, including Northern Lion and Quill18. You might want to watch some of the gameplay there to make the decision, because really, I can't give you a recommendation on this other than the fact that a lot of people really like it, and it's considered to be one of both the best and most stable grand strategies that Paradox has actually put out. And finally, NBA 2K15, 33% off. What do I know about basketball? What don't I know about basketball? Everything, for the most part. Come on, it's basketball. What exactly am I going to be telling you about this? What I will say is the PC port, for the most part, is good, which is fairly rare for sports games. So that's nice. There are some problems here and there. People are complaining about the multiplayer and a lot of server issues here and there. I can't really comment on the features because, frankly, I haven't played any of the previous NBA games, so I don't know what's been cut, what hasn't, what's important and what is not. For the most part, it does seem to be a solid port if you are into basketball. There aren't really that many options on PC, honestly. Though, I would hardly call this a big discount, so are you desperate to play some basketball? Well, if you have a controller, you should be in for a reasonably good time, although it does suffer from some minor options problems and occasional multiplayer issues here and there. But outside of that, it is a pretty solid sports game. Just don't expect to be using the keyboard and mouse with it. That will not go well for you. Alright, folks, that wraps me up for today. Thank you very much for watching the Salebox, and I will see you next time.